Hello and welcome to the Larger Than Necessary First Player Token podcast. My name is Chris.
I'm Euan.
I'm Pawel.
And even Dave.
Even Dave is here.
Even Dave, not even Stephen.
That's my podcast name.
Alright, Even Dave.
Yeah.
Even Dave.
I'm very fair.
Alright. You're even-handed.
Fair and balanced.
One of my favourite names for a Dave was always in the Terry Pratchett books when he had a medium Dave, because there's always a big Dave and a little Dave.
Oh, yeah.
There's a guy called Medium Dave.
Fantastic. I wish there was a medium Pawel somewhere. No.
It's certainly not you, man.
No.
Is that a Polish thing to call you Big Pavel?
No.
Big Pav?
No.
Big Pav.
It's
Big
just,
Paul.
you can't do anything with Pawel.
Be Pavel.
That's just that. You don't do anything with that. You can do so much with Dave, honestly.
There is so much you can do with Dave. Annoying Dave. Weirdo Dave. That's just Dave sitting there, actually.
Should we do an offshoot podcast about names?
Oh yeah, we could do. Add that to the list of...
I think we could probably just call out all the material from what we've done about when we've been going on about names and just put it into a compilation podcast. So it's about time we started doing compilations.
Yeah.
So yes, in case you haven't guessed, Dave is also here.
Mm-hmm. I am.
So this is the missing board games episode from last week. We do apologise. It's probably Pawel's fault that we didn't put an episode out last week. So here's our plan. So this is episode 54.
Are we just going to blame me?
Yeah, we're going to blame Pawel. We're going to put a board games episode out on Monday, which is when our video games episode should be due out. But then on hopefully Thursday we'll put our video games episode out. So you'll get 2 episodes in 1 week, and that should make up for it. We'll be back on track after that.
Wow.
Everything
It's like
good.
time travel.
Well, we're talking about the Monday upon which you are actually listening to this podcast.
Yes.
So you can triangulate your position in time from there.
Okay, so let's just get straight into this then now, because we've been playing... we've had a bit of a Ryan Lockett special here.
Ah?
Because one of the Kickstarter's projects that I backed, Near and Far, turned up. So we thought, we played a bit of Near and Far, but we also played The Ancient World, so we're going to talk about that. But we've got something else to talk about at the end of the episode too. We're going to...
Be surprised.
It's not a Ryan Lockett game, but yeah, We Surprise, something we've talked about before, but we changed it up a bit, so we thought it's worthwhile talking about. So let's get straight into this. We're going to start off by talking about Near and Far.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sequel to Above and Below.
Sequel to Above and Below, which we've not played.
But feature in this game, and there does seem to be an extended mythology to the works of Ryan Lockett. I don't know if there's like a kind of any relation to the Ancient World to this, or whether they're all set in the same weird world. It's sort of like sort of mild fantasy.
Yeah.
With elements of like steampunk and...
I love a mild fantasy.
Yeah, it's totally mild fantasy. It's not like right in your face fantasy. It's kind of just like, it's just a bit of fantasy. Just a little bit of fantasy running through it.
Is that like the 10-minute preview that they used to show on adult channels?
Aye, it is. It's that mild.
Oh no!
Right, let's get some usable podcast material in here.
Well, Near and Far's an interesting one. It's got a big worker placement mechanic.
Can I just say before we start this, actually, that I made a bit of an arse at this Kickstarter project because I totally misread what I was getting. For some reason, I thought I was going to get a copy of Above and Below as well, and I didn't. I just misread it, so I ended up getting a load of extra bits for Above and Below instead, which is a game that I don't own.
And we're now doubly confused about what's going on in Near and Far. Yeah. We've just got these extra bits. Like, how does this relate?
Well, I looked this up. So Near and Far is a sequel to Above and Below,
right,
like you say. But they're totally different games. They've got similarities in them that I think it seems that Ryan Lockett has some sort of things that he likes to do in his games.
Yeah.
And I think, judging by what I've seen, Above and Below is it's got some similarities to Near and Far, but they are different games. So you don't need to have played Above and Below in order to play Near and Far.
Okay.
Carry on, Euan.
Alright, well, yeah. No, I was just going to mention out the worker placement element of the game. It's not the central mechanic. It's really interestingly worked out, because essentially you've got a map that you can move about on, and do various quests and things like that. But then you've also got this city where you can choose various actions, and it does work like your normal worker placement games where you can kind of block certain ones, or there's certain ones that everybody can access and things like that. And these will be things like recruiting sidekicks to join your little band of... You start off with just yourself and either a cat or a dog, which is quite nice.
Yes.
Or you can go mining, you can, for extra resources, you can go and get food, which you need to get their pack birds, which allow you to carry treasures when you're out on the map, and so on. And that's most of what sort of goes on, certainly the bit that we played.
Yeah.
I imagine that will change as the game...
What we'll say is that we only really played the introduction game, really.
Yeah.
Now, before we actually go any further, we should probably say that there's actually 3 ways that you can play this game.
Yeah.
So the introduction game is kind of completely separate from all of those things because it's really just teaching you how to play. The 3 ways you can play the game is that there's an arcade mode where there is no sort of real story going through it. It's all just kind of random events because this is a storytelling game.
Yeah.
And there's a campaign mode and a character mode. Now the campaign mode is based on the sort of maps that you play on, and all the sort of locations on this map have different quests associated with them, different stories. So when you go to these locations, you can do different quests. Now the character mode is where you play through as one single character, and there's, I think, is it 8 characters you can choose from in this game. And these characters, what you're actually doing is telling the character stories instead. So the maps aren't really that relevant when you're playing the character mode. It's more just that you've got different maps to play on every time, but when you get a quest, it's related to the character you're playing. And the game comes with a big book of quests, so there's a lot of stuff in there that you read, and it's stuff that you read and then you've got choices to make, and it can be dependent on certain, if you have certain skill points and stuff like that.
I mean, most of it seemed to be split between either skill or combat.
Yeah.
Which you can kind of focus your abilities on. You're always going to have a little bit of each, and you can kind of sort of I forget the word now. Generalise, that's the one.
I know this word.
Yeah, and so have a bit of each, or really go in for skills so that you're more diplomatic and things. Because diplomacy seemed to be a big thing, a part of quite a lot of the quests that we did. You could either sort of wade in fighting, or you could talk things out and sort things out that way. Yeah, and you can sort of pick up different. There's like different factions that you can.
And that's one of the things that I think Ryan Lockett likes to do in his games.
Well, yeah,
he seems to have a thing about factions. Judging by like the Ancient World, which we're going to talk about after this, he does have that like different coloured banners for different factions, and if you collect sets of them, then you get something for it.
Good bit of set collection.
Yeah, he likes a bit of set collection.
Set collection and kind of not like the engine building to some extent. The idea that you kind of, because one of the things you do in Near and Far is when you set up your party, and when you leave the town, if you choose to go off adventure and out onto the map, you set up your party there. You decide which allies you're taking with you, how many hearts that gives you, and hearts kind of
it's like a stamina meter almost.
Yeah, it kind of dictates how much you're going to be able to do out on the real world, essentially. So you'll have all these little points that you can stop off at on the road. Some roads will have hazards on, like danger, that you'd have to fight some enemy, not energy. And the enemies will get stronger as you go on. The more you fight, the stronger they will be.
Sorry, so each player's got their own party?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
So essentially, you start the game in a town.
Yeah.
And the town is kind of... Because the game's almost like 2 different things going on. So you've got the town side of things and you've got the map side of things. So when you start the game in the town, as you described earlier, there's different sort of spaces that you can move your character onto. And you can get various actions, and it's like Euan said, it's a worker placement thing. So if you're in one space, somebody else can't use it if they're in the town as well. And that's when you hire your party, and your party gives you you can have up to 4 members in your party. Yeah. They give you different things. So some of them might be you can, like, they give you skill points, or they'll let you move faster. Well, when they say move faster, it means they'll let you move more in one go.
Like they do have kind of, I mean, when the folk that join your party, you can only have one from each. So there's 4 factions, and you can only have one from each. I mean, you can have more at your disposal. You hire them on, but then when you're actually setting up your party to go out into the world, you have to decide who you're taking, and you can only take one from each faction.
And you also, you can use your cat or your dog to fill up one of those faction spaces, which is nice. And the cat and dog's actually a pretty useful thing. They're identical, it doesn't matter, they're just double-sided. There's a cat on one side, dog on the other, because they didn't want to force people to have a dog.
No, imagine that.
I want a cat.
Did I not?
Why the cat not? Well, you get all the people saying, where's the gerbil option?
Did I not see you can have a pangolin? Am I imagining this?
There is an option for that, and it's basically when you're playing a sort of campaign mode, the person that's in last place, or who finished last in the last map, can take that instead, and it gives them an extra bit of a boost so that they're not constantly lagging behind. It's one of those Euro mechanic things where just it's like letting the person in last place do a bit of catching up so that nobody runs away with the lead.
Yeah. I just think, one thing that we've probably mentioned is certainly no elements that we've played so far. There's not really anything cooperative. If you're asking about everybody having their own party, there's not really any cooperative element. You are just out for your own kind of, go and complete as many quests and get the most points. Usual sort of story.
Well, it's not just that though, because it's not just all about the quests. Because we are kind of split the quests between us on the map. Because at the start of the game, we should have said you put little tokens in different spaces of the map to say that there's a quest here, and it's random, so sort of randomly decided. And you do get sort of stuff from doing that, but a lot of the points that you get in the game tend to come from other things as well.
Yeah, I suppose there are other stats, and you can accumulate quite a lot of money and things like that.
Yeah,
and gems.
Gems, yep.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I sort of didn't mention about the when you're adventuring out in the map, when you go to different areas, you can choose to spend some of your hearts, so your sort of stamina there, to put down camps. And as the game goes on, there's more and more of these camps you're going to be putting out on the map. They will basically allow you to move further from the town, because you always start from the same town when you adventure out. And so it's the idea is you're kind of making it easier to get about the place, because it costs you stamina, or like hearts, to move across different. To move without placing a camp.
If there's no camp in a space, it costs you a heart to move through it. That's essentially how it works.
So it's a Dark Souls bonfire.
Kinda.
Not quite.
I can see what you're going for, but yeah, it's not really the same. But the thing is that it's not just your own camps that count. So if somebody else builds a camp in a space, you use that to move through. So if you're out like I did, I was like putting camps all the way around the town, but I was just making it easier for other people to go.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's cool.
And that is kind of a consideration when you're doing stuff, because you kind of we all took a wee bit of time before going out. I think we probably could have done a quick venture out, go stick a camp down, but we didn't really know where we wanted to go. And you do kind of have to sort of soften up your route a bit, because you can get rid of threats on certain places if you build a camp either side of them. Makes it easier to get to where you're trying to go, but then that also gives other people the opportunity to get to that place as well a bit easier. So it's deciding how long you're going to stay out adventuring for, come back, get yourself slightly better stuff, and then go back out again.
And there is a benefit from building camps, because you get either like generally money or gems from building a camp in a space, and it depends on the space. It's just got a symbol on the space, really. Building a camp will give you money depending on the people in your party, because it's based on the skill symbols, isn't it?
There's three stats really.
Or is it? No, it's the eye symbol.
It's the eye symbol.
So it's like a searching symbol.
Yeah, and you'll kind of however many of those you have in your party, you'll get that amount of stuff.
When we played it, I had, like, from the beginning of the game, I had quite a lot, like, most of my party had eye symbols on them, I think, if not all of them. So every time I was building a camp, so if I build a camp on a gold space, I had 3 guys in my party that had eye symbols on them, I get 3 gold for that, which I can then just go back to the town and spend on better things.
Gotcha.
Like, looking at the allies that you can take on, they do seem to be broken up into certain classes. It's just that they're not explicitly, this is a fighter or this is a ranger, but they do have those kind of qualities to them. Like, some will be better, some will give you better sort of skill and searching things, and some will be more sort of combat focused. So you can kind of decide how you're gonna proceed with them.
And the combat thing's quite interesting, because like if you move across a space that's got a threat in it, basically, and it's actually not a space, it's between 2 spaces on a board. you have to fight something, and there's like a predetermined deck, and I think it's the same deck every time you play, which has like starts off with like bandits, low level bandits, and you don't need a lot of combat to beat them. So you're just looking at the combat symbols that you have, and then you roll a die and add that on, which you generally do with all the sort of checks that you do in this game. And when you defeat that, you get that card, and it gives you points at the end of the game. But then the next card's slightly harder until it goes all the way through. I think there's like 12 cards or something until you're fighting some sort of massive titan thing at the very bottom of the deck, and it takes a lot of combat to kill that.
We'd only sort of got maybe up to, they were combat strength 12, and that was only about halfway through the deck, so they're going to be pretty high.
No, I think that was the last. I think it was the last card was there. Yeah, I think it was 12 or 14 or something like that. But yeah, because Ian, the guy we were playing with, ended up just killing the vast majority of those things and like racking up so many points for it.
You get to that point though when they're about that strength that it's quite difficult to have that much combat strength. So you're going to have to basically anything you can't make up in combat strength, you pay for in your hearts.
Yeah.
So you just use up however many of it, and like if that, so you're never really going to lose, but you might end up cutting short your journey because you can't really go any further because you've spent all your hearts and try to kill something.
So there is a random element to it because you add up your combat things, you roll your dice, and then any difference you have to pay for in hearts. So if you had a plan to get to this certain space and build a camp there, but you didn't do it because you spent all your hearts fighting something instead, that's it. That's your plan finished, and you have to just go back to the town.
So it's less about being a hero and exploring places, more about managing a group of heroes.
Yes, there is a big element of that, but I mean, it's because we only played that sort of tutorial. I'm calling it a tutorial mission. It basically is. It's teaching you how to play the game, and it's the fundamental like mechanics of the game that is teaching you. Because you then decide from that point on whether you want to play the sort of arcade or the campaign or the character mode. And that's what I'm looking forward to with this, because we haven't had a chance to do that yet.
Yeah, because I suppose what you've just talked about was the bare bone mechanics of the game.
Yes,
rather
and
than
that's
the
it.
game
There's
itself.
not a lot of flair.
Well, what's going to be the big thing in this game? It's going to be the story.
Yeah.
Okay, so what this game actually has in terms of its maps is it's got a sort of like ring binder almost book. Which has 11 maps in it. Now, the first map is the tutorial map. Now, when you're playing a campaign or the character mode, you play the next map. And then when you're done with that map, you'll play the next map. And there's a story actually gets told as you're playing through this.
And it's everything just Ryan Lockett.
Ryan Lockett,
yeah.
He's a one-man machine, this guy.
Because we're looking at really good artwork. We're looking
Which he did.
Yeah, we're looking at complex mechanics.
Which he made.
World building.
Which he did.
Storytelling.
Yep.
Man!
The guy, he's
a bit of a machine.
Yes, it's pretty incredible. It's very rare that you find one guy that does everything for a game, especially a modern board game, which is up to scratch. Pawel, you'll like this game if we actually start playing it properly.
It does sound like it, yeah.
And it's probably going to be good because our Gloomhaven sessions are going to be on hold at the moment.
Oh yeah, that's
our friend that we're playing our Gloomhaven thing with, his wife just had a kid, so congratulations to James and Amanda if you're listening. But yeah, they're Gloomhaven sessions. I mean, I did.
What happens when you have kids? You just stop having fun.
Yeah, you stop having fun.
Yeah. All right.
I mean, I did send them a message saying, so are we going to have to delay Gloomhaven by a week?
By a week.
I don't know if you thought I was joking or not. But yeah, so like this would be a good thing to just like for us to play in the meantime, because it's got a sort of decent campaign through it. And the thing is that you can play through the whole thing in campaign mode, and then go back and play through it again in character mode, and it's completely different stories.
Alright, cool.
So it's an interesting thing. It's got a good chunk of replayability in it for something that's a storytelling game.
Yeah.
Very nice.
It's almost like there's two separate games that just use the same mechanics. That's basically it.
And whenever you want, I suppose you can just come back and play it.
Yeah, and you can come back and play arcade mode, because the arcade mode, instead of using the stories in the book, it's got a deck of cards that just say, here's, there's no actual stories on the cards, it's just choose this or that, make a check, and here's the outcome of that check.
Looking forward to it. Would love to give it a go.
Yeah, man, I'm really looking forward to having a go at one of these proper modes.
Really enjoyed it, what we played of it the other day. Yeah, I've been thinking about this one, just be great.
Yeah.
Rattle through these maps and everything.
One thing I should say actually is if you play the character mode, you have to keep track of like what you did in every single quest because it affects the next quest or what quest you do next, basically.
Nice.
So there's a proper story runs through this, and you do, and because there's multiple characters, you could play through the character mode several times because the stories are different for each character.
That must be a thick book.
It's a decent sized book.
Yeah,
I did show it. I showed it to you earlier, and it's got a lot in it.
Yep.
And yeah, it's something I'm really looking forward to doing.
Well done, Ryan Lockett.
It sounds amazing. I love the idea of creating a little party and just venturing out into the world and building little camps. That kind of siege mentality. I like the sound of that, like working your way towards things. I think I'm looking forward to playing it as well, and it looks so pretty.
Yeah, it is. It's a really, really nice game. I think it's slightly more cartoony than like the Ancient World is, and especially the way the characters kind of look and stuff like that. There's a lot more sort of softness to it, I think.
Aye.
Hence mild fantasy, yeah?
Yeah, mild
I think
fantasy.
I think that's what it's got the feel of kind of like the look and feel of like a lot of indie video games have now. Like this slightly whimsical style, but like I don't know why it keeps reminding me of things like Don't Starve. I know it's not the same, but in terms of like how it's the idea behind the aesthetic, there's a few games like that. I couldn't really come up with the name off the top of my head, but
Question.
have that.
Yes.
Several players, each with their own party, wondering about the map. Is there interaction between them?
There is
Not on the map though.
not on the map, but
So
in the town.
in the city, yes.
I said that in the town you can't go on a space that somebody else is in.
Yeah.
You can, but you have to fight them.
Okay.
And if you fail that fight, you go to prison,
Ooh.
and you basically lose your turn. So yeah, there is a little bit of thing going on there. So like the interaction is mainly to do with like the spaces in the town, but also like when you're out in the map, other people are building camps and all that sort of thing. So you're getting the sort of you can end up getting the benefits out of what they're doing.
Okay.
Well, there's a dual mechanic for that where you have to like it's not just like and it's the dual thing is slightly different to normal combat as well. Like there's items that you can get out and things like that because the other thing actually we didn't mention about was the you get a hand of cards at the start of the game. These artifacts. Now you don't have them to use. They have different costs in gold or whatever like that, and you have to pay those costs, and then you have them out, and you get a benefit from them. Because one of mine that I had was like a musket pistol. It was specifically the combat bonus it gave you was specifically for dueling because it was like dueling pistols.
Right. And there's a lot of those cards in the game actually, and you can pick up more as you're playing. As you go to the town, you can pick up more, and you when you get those out, and you get points for those at the end of the game as well. So it's it's another way of getting points in this game, and some of them are worth a lot of points. And you're encouraged to get those cards out because if you've got any left in your hand at the end of the game, you lose a point for each one. So you are really encouraged to just like build up your party using your artifacts. And there's also the treasure cards which your pack birds carry around for you, and they give you they tend to be sort of smaller bonuses. Might just be an extra combat point or an extra heart or something like that.
Some of the cards are quite like the artifacts are quite difficult to get used because like a lot of them are based on because you'll have like maybe a money cost or like you pay a faction token or something like that, and some of them, quite a few of mine I sort of found anyway, were based on reputation, and I had ones that were based on really high reputation, ones that were based on really low reputation. I was like, how am I ever going to get this done?
Oh yeah, I should have said there is a reputation mechanic. It's if you do bad things, you lose your reputation. Like if you had eaten your cat that you found.
Oh yeah,
your adorable kitten, which was something you found, and you had the option of eating it and losing reputation. But yeah, the reputation it affects some things, but you get bonus points at the end of the game if you've got positive reputation and stuff like that.
See, I imagine that would be more interesting in a campaign mode.
Yeah, I think so.
I gotta say, you guys play like themed games more and more often nowadays. Between Gloomhaven and this and a few others, you're getting, and then obviously the Pathfinder as well. You're getting into my sort of area of interest. So I'm actually quite proud of you.
Pawel, we will never be as bad as you.
No, it's fine. As long as you gravitate towards what I consider the right way, it's fine.
We're only playing one role-playing game, and that's it. That'll do for us.
That's how it starts.
We're barely playing that one.
I'm actually involved in 2 now, so.
There you go. Well
You're
done.
having another session tonight.
It started 10 minutes ago.
All right, nice one, lads.
Oh no!
I'm sure they can
Anyway.
wait for you. They'll be picking up their Japanese weapons and describing it.
Oh yeah. Let's not go into that. I could probably do a sub episode about this, but yeah.
Looking forward to that.
Roll20 is an interesting place to meet people for role playing games. Okay, anyway, we need to move on.
We'll move
so that is The Ancient World, which is by Ryan Lockett.
That's not The Ancient World.
That's Near and Far, which is by Ryan Lockett. Okay, so yes, let's move on to The Ancient World by Ryan Lockett.
Which we all had a chance to play this afternoon.
Indeed, so
everybody should have some input on this one.
And we've been talking a lot, so let's pass this over.
Aha.
Tell us about The Ancient World.
Shall I start, Dave? I shall start by saying hi. Ancient World is shall I just say, worker placement / engine building. Does that sound reasonable in regards to the main mechanics?
It's mostly worker placement, yeah.
Yeah, so you start up with a bunch of your basic Empire improvements and forces at your disposal, as well as a few sorry dudes which are going to do all the work for you. What you're aiming at is essentially expand your Empire and your armed forces, hopefully quicker than the others, whilst from time to time battling the native forces of Titans, who are living peacefully in the hills across the board. And from time to time you figure, you know what, yes, we hate those people, let's just kill them all, they don't deserve it, but we want their lands, their food and their money. So you essentially play the bad guys.
I just want to say, this is Pawel's interpretation of this world.
It's made pretty clear, canonically, that the various, because this game, as you said earlier, has various factions with coloured banners, which look almost identical to the ones in Near and Far. They're all running, all these different tribes, the 5 tribes, they're all running away from these Titans that have been smashing up their cities.
I don't know, let's talk about mechanics, man. I mean,
now you want to change the subject.
Now you want to talk about mechanics.
No, I'm sorry, mechanics
Mr.
are on my
Theme
side.
wants to talk about mechanics.
No, because the theme is actually there. If you spend your turn expanding your empire or just doing whatever your workers have to do, you're not getting attacked. You decide to attack Titans and then they take revenge on you. Just revenge by smashing some of your buildings. If I were a Titan, I would be angry if I got attacked in the hills. So I would then strike back. So, you know what? I feel for them. Poor Titans.
But these Titans are the landed gentry, though, in your particular version of this game.
No, they didn't native folk. It's
you said they just stroll about the hills.
With their,
no, this is all about politics.
Lording over their land with their resources.
No, I mean, we're all bad. Let's face it. I mean, you guys are Britons. You've, colonized half the planet and you still think you're the good guys? Obviously.
Not me personally.
Oh, yeah, of course. No, some of us don't, yeah. So that's exactly what's happening here. You're just a fledgling civilization, and there is a native, beautiful people, some of them with tentacles and some of them with huge eyes. Fair enough, they're different. But why beat them, honestly? I mean, just live in peace.
Are you saying they're like benevolent overlords?
No, they just far away. My tactics
That's
in
it,
this
Dave.
game...
Keep steering it in that direction.
I thought that in this game all I could do was just build things up, but unfortunately other players decided that they're just gonna expand their empires on the blood of the native tribes.
But Pawel, you like story, you like the kind of narrative aspect of things.
Indeed, I do.
What happens when this game ends? And and not just our aspect of the game where we're looking down on it and all that's happened. Like this civilization, it's like you walk away from the game, and they're still going, all right, well, we've got our empire, but what about all these Titans we haven't bothered to kill, who then come running over the hill and smash them all up? That's what happens.
You're just assuming they're going to come because they're different and they have tentacles.
Every Titan you don't kill in a game of Ancient World becomes something that will kill a.
I'm sure this is what UKIP says about migrants.
In another alternate dimension.
Politics. Always with the politics.
So, going back to the mechanics then, yes? I think if we were to compare it to Yokohama, which was also worker placement, there's the amount of, well, sort of, I guess.
It was a very, that was more worker management.
Okay, well, sorry. My point is the amount of, the types of actions you can take with your workers is, there's just a couple of them compared to Yokohama, which had like, I don't know, like 50 different, yeah.
This is more back in the normal style of...
This is classic worker placement, yeah.
Yeah, and this is why I also said engine building, because I think that you just focus on a few things that you can achieve in your early rounds in order to have a sort of cycle going on with regaining your resources that you can then spend to gaining more resources. There isn't that many of them, but they're well-rounded, I think, and depending on your decisions, you can just completely stay behind others, or you can get well ahead of others by just not really having luck, but making the right choices, because it's just 6 rounds, wasn't it?
6 rounds.
Yeah, so that's not a lot of time, and you take your pass. You essentially take your action, which is either placing a worker someplace or attacking an innocent Titan somewhere out there in a peaceful village in the hills, and then the next person takes their round, and it just goes around the table until everybody has passed.
No, I think you're simplifying things a bit there.
Yeah, 6 rounds, and I thought...
Because there's a lot more strategy to this game than you're giving it credit for.
Oh no, I'm not trying to simplify it. It's just what I want to say is it's not complex at first, but you can actually devise a really good strategy, or you can do what I do, which is just not much in the game as such. I didn't want to spill innocent blood, really.
Well, like a lot of good worker placement games have that. They're very slow in the first round because there's so little you can do, and then the options just become exponentially bigger in every subsequent round, which is why you only need 6 in this case.
Yeah, I think 6 is plenty in this game, though, because there's a lot to think about. I would say even from the start, there's some big decisions that can be made. You have to really, if you want to do well, you have to really look carefully at what has come out on the board for that turn, in terms of the sort of properties that you can purchase or the armies that you can recruit. Because that's really important, because you can... I felt like I totally missed out on something really obvious in the very first turn, because I was new to the game, and Chris picked up on it straight away, and I missed out on it. And then I felt I was set back at that point. It was like one of the properties gives you the scrolls. They're like knowledge.
Yeah,
knowledge scrolls.
And a lot of the better stuff costs knowledge.
They turn out to be very important, and they're expensive if you want to buy them. You have to place a worker, so you've wasted an action. You have to spend 3 coins, and that gives you a scroll. But there are a number of properties that you can purchase, which will give you a scroll at the end of every turn. Yeah. So 2 of those were out on the first turn that we played, and Chris managed to pick up one of them, and I messed up because I wanted to do that as well, but I kind of made a mistake. And what actually happened was, an interesting thing in this game is that the workers have numbers on them, which I haven't seen in other games, and there's a system for when you're placing workers on a space that already has someone else's worker on it. It's slightly fiddly, but most of them, you have to place a number that's higher than the number that's on the worker that's already there. And what happened in our first turn is that Chris placed his highest worker, which was number 3 at the time, on the scroll purchasing space, and that meant that no one else was able to use it.
And we hate him for it. And
it was a really clever move. And I was kicking myself for not seeing that he was going to do that.
And that's why I'm saying that there's a lot more strategy to this game, and it is to do with the numbers on the workers.
Yeah, definitely.
Can really bully people.
You can properly. But the other thing as well is that it gives you, it sort of bamboozles you with a lot of options.
Yeah.
Right from the start, and it's finding something that's going to work and actually be useful to you. Because I think I went for a lot of money generating things, but ultimately found that I've lost out on a lot of other stuff.
Achieve with it, yeah.
Because if you don't get that knowledge, you're basically humped. You got to get the knowledge.
You want to win the game by just building as much stuff as possible and defeating as many innocents as you can. However,
Titans. They're called Titans.
Those, yes. Should we attempt at least
lords, masters?
Should we attempt to explain the whole armed forces situation?
Well, I mean, what we can do is we can give a sort of overview of what all the spaces actually mean in this on the board, because what you start the game with is essentially a couple of things that give you food, and you need food to feed your workers.
Yeah.
So you start with 3 workers, 1, 2, and 3. A couple of things to feed your workers. You've also got a capital city, which provides you food and money every round. It also gives you 4 spaces for building buildings, and you also start with 2 military units, which are very basic, and they have either sword or arrow symbols on them. On the actual main board where you're placing your workers, you can do various things. Like Dave says, you can buy a scroll for 3 coins, or you can get 2 coins in another space. There's a space that eventually unlocks in the 3rd round of the game where you can pay 3 coins to get another worker, which is something that in these kind of worker placement games, expanding your workforce is always a good move, because it just gives you more options, and especially because you get a higher numbered worker. Again, you can really bully people with that. So I'm putting this 4-numbered thing here. I'm the only person that's got a 4-numbered thing. You're all screwed, you know. And there's spaces where you can buy buildings. There's a space where you can get new military units. There's a space where you can store a building, which means actually taking one out of the building display, the ones that are available, or out of the deck, and storing it for later so that you can build it. It's essentially reserving a building without having to pay for it yet. There's a space where you can boost your combat power for that round only.
Yeah, and grab some money.
And grab, I think, I did mention the grab money space.
And there's another one for expanding the amount of slots for building.
Yes, and there's one where you can basically make your empire bigger. So expanding your empire, which just gives you extra building slots. So you're kind of limited at the start of the game with the fact that you've only got 4 slots to build buildings in, and you're going to have to expand that. Now, there are other ways you can do it, not just taking that expansion thing. You can also, like, defeating some titans gives you extra space. I think there are some buildings that will let you do stuff like that as well, give you extra space and that kind of thing.
If there's actually any in the Empire.
Well, maybe I'm wrong.
But yeah, you certainly do get quite a lot of the titans, and that was probably one of the biggest ways that you and Dave did it, is you had a lot of deed titans.
Now, the titans themselves, to get back to what Pawel was asking about, the titans themselves have they're split into 3, so you've got really strong ones that have got 3 of those coloured banners on them. You've got sort of medium ones that have got 2, and you've got really weak ones that have got 1. Well, I say really weak, they're still kind of difficult to kill in the first turn sometimes. Now, your military units have also got these, they've got the symbols for the arrows and the swords on them, so have the titans. So if you've got a titan that says 5 and it's got sword and arrows on them, that means you can use any combination of swords and arrows on your military units, but you have to pay them. So you have to pay your military units, and it gets increasingly more expensive the more you use them. So you kill your titans, and you basically use your military units to kill the titans. It's an action that you can take in a turn. It's not a worker placement action, though. It's just something you can do as your action instead of placing a worker. As long as you've got the right amount of symbols, you kill that titan. It's yours. It's dead. You get the banners that are on it. And you have to roll a die. And if you roll a die, and 4 of the sides of this die have got a titan symbol on them, and if you roll one of those, you have to destroy one of the buildings in your empire. It doesn't completely destroy it, you just have to flip it over. You can repair them later. That's another space on the board, actually, is repairing the buildings. You can replace your military units, but you have to retire your old ones. But your old ones, and I like this thing, actually, because there's a little story beat here, where basically they say that the units that you retire teach the new units their skills. So you actually flip the military unit over that you're retiring. It's got a symbol on the back. It's just generally a reduced version of the damage they would have done. So maybe just 1 sword symbol or something. And then you put your new one on top, and they get that bonus sword symbol, and it's pretty cool. That I actually really like that mechanic. You're upgrading, training your new units with the old units. So you can build up and get stronger and fight better titans, bigger titans and stuff. And what we probably should have said is at the end of the game, you score points depending on the colours of the banners you've got, and you want to get... It's set collection. Again, it's set collection. Sets. Yeah, so if you get... it's maximum 6 for the most points. So if you get 6 red banners, you'll get 11 points for it. And you'll get less if you've got less than that. So you do want to try and collect specific sets of things.
Yeah, and there are. I mean, looking at because of the later Empire cards will give you some end of game bonuses. I think there's basically one for each faction that gives a boost for the points on that, and then there is one in there that I saw that gave you an extra point for each set of 5 different ones you had.
Yep.
So it kind of gives you that.
Yeah, there is that
bit of
one
a bonus.
Right. So yeah, and then the Empire story, I don't know if we actually mentioned this, but the Empire cards themselves have banners on them too. So the buildings that you build have banners on them. So you're basically like, the game is all about set collection. It's all about just going through building certain buildings, not just to give you bonuses, but you kind of want to try and, focus on particular colours of banners as well. Yeah. Sometimes it's good to just build a building for the bonus it gives.
Because it was the bonuses really that, especially in the later rounds, mattered much more. In fact, that just taking the actions, this is where the engine sort of building aspect comes in, because you can have a very nice combination of bonuses that even make some actions irrelevant. I think, Chris, you had an option to take an action which was doing completely, I think, like exploring.
Yeah, so
and you would also get 5 coins along with it, just because you had such bonuses. Whereas there is an action on the board which allows you to get 3 coins or even 2 coins. So those bonuses can actually be combined into something really.
The last turn of the game, I took that action. I didn't even care about the exploring action, just taking storing the cards. I just wanted the coins.
And also to backstab Euan.
And I backstabbed Euan quite hard.
Well, you just basically...
I think it was more precious than the 5 coins.
Yeah. It was just point theft. That was all it was.
I knew I wasn't going to win the game. I just kind of wanted those last 2 rounds to play, just to savour the game.
You were vocally upset.
I was fucked off about the whole thing, to be honest.
The beauty of board gaming.
It's always a good game if Euan gets upset.
Right, let's sum up, shall we?
Yes, let's sum up. The Ancient World. Despite the fact that there's only 6 rounds in this game, it escalates quite quickly.
Yeah.
To the point where you're doing a lot in one turn. Mm-hmm. And you could end up killing multiple titans if you've got the abilities.
Mm-hmm. It takes longer than you think. I think when you look at 6 round, you think, this is going to play really quickly. There's a lot of...
But there is
decision making.
There's a good chunky analysis paralysis kicks in at certain points in this game. I think there are times where it's kind of obvious what you want to do or what you should be doing.
Yeah.
And there are other times where you just kind of go, "What the hell do I do now?"
Because it's just complex decision making. But I found that you don't really wait that much for your turn. It was fairly dynamic, or at least I thought so.
Dave, what do you think of it?
Yeah, it's good. I liked the fact that there's a kind of balance of types of strategies that you can take when you play this game. It's not weighted towards building a huge engine, and it's not weighted towards killing more titans than anyone else. I mean, you could, if you wished, not kill any titans at all.
I think we're talking the same language now. How did you feel when you actually killed some of them?
How did I feel? Well, I was
devastated,
pretty dispasseries about, but I was very happy to gain the various benefits that they had in their car. I mean, they weren't really titans to me; they were just a series of symbols.
Honestly,
that's
cold, man.
That's the way you rationalise these things, Pawel. You have to.
Yeah. When you commit a murder, you need to think about the loot, not about the death of a person.
Dave, you are a terrifying man. Euan, is this still one of your favourite games?
I still like it, really enjoy it. I think that was only why I was so angry, because you were taking precious game time away from me. But that's what I do like about this, and I think the same about Near and Far is that, you get a lot of criticism of Eurogame mechanics for being a bit solitary or whatever, but I actually think some of the better games make that worth your while. Because you can kind of actually enjoy that aspect of the game without worrying too much. I'm winning this, because you're just building up your wee empire, and it has a bit of feeling to it. That's what I enjoyed about that, and same about Near and Far is just building it up and having a bit of care about my little empire. It's nice.
Pawel, do you want to give some final thoughts?
I just want to say that, really good game. Not exactly what I expected. For some reason, I wasn't exactly, because you guys kept saying worker placement. Obviously, that was the main part, but I I don't think I fully visualized at first how exactly we win the game, and I just ended up stumbling a bit. I could get a few of those banners, but I could see you guys sailing way ahead with the developed sort of strategy how to get them. You could pretty much pick and choose, whereas us in the back, we were just maybe trying to reach a few of those.
That's not how I played the game. I just tried to kill the Titans. That's, you know.
So you were starting every turn thinking who exactly to just murder, yes? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's fine.
Okay, well, I'll just say I think this is one of the better worker placement games that I own, definitely. And it's all to do with it. I think it's all to do with just the fact that the workers are numbered. I think that's the big thing.
That does
that's
nice,
the big thing.
Nice addition.
Yeah.
And I think you've got a similar thing. You see, he has his own as wee tropes, and like maybe not as pronounced as it is in Near and Far, but the idea that you're doing that for then a purpose of going and killing the Titans gives that worker placement. Like, it makes it feel a bit less, because some people can't stand those types of games. We know you have difficulty with them, but you've come to enjoy these ones.
I can see
and
this.
These are the kind of games that are make it worth your
while. I love
while.
the Oxford.
Yeah, well, these are where the Breneir's kind of mixing up the formula a bit and giving you something different to do with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right, well, we could probably talk about Ryan Lockett all night, but we're going to have to move on, because we're going to have to try and cram something else in here.
We're going to squeeze it in.
We're going to squeeze it in. But so yeah, that was The Ancient World by Ryan Lockett and Red Raven Games. Okay, let's move on to the final thing we want to talk about, and we'll just quickly talk about this because it's something we talked about a few episodes back, which is Captain Sonar. And when we first talked about it, we'd only played the sort of turn-by-turn version.
With just 2 players on each team as well.
Yeah, with 2 players on each team. And what we did was we went off on our friend's stag do a few weeks ago, and of course I took games with me.
Game.
Yeah, I took games with me. Hey, we played Werewolf and everything. Oh. Everybody loved it.
Aye.
It was good. So we took Captain Sonar, and we decided we had enough people, 4-on-4, real-time Captain Sonar.
Nice.
And it was bloody excellent. It was just so much fun.
No, it was actually quite a different experience playing it turn-based with 4 people as well. But yeah, I can see the sort of real-time one is how that game's meant to be.
It's how it's supposed to be played.
As a fun party game where you can, well, I say fun, it can get a little bit daunting at points. It can get a little bit traumatic where you're trying to sort of work out where you are, and you're constantly your radio operator is constantly losing the position of the other submarine.
Yeah,
I don't know how we won it because your team are quite close. Were you on Ian's team? I can't remember who was on whose team. Either way, Ian was submarine commander.
I wasn't on Ian's team.
Oh, right, maybe you were on mine then.
I was the engineer, so I was sitting far away from you.
Oh, that's probably it. Yeah, I wasn't even looking at you. But basically, whoever was doing the radio operator, like trying to track the other team, there wasn't a point where we had them anywhere near, and he lost the route after about 3 turns every time, and it was like, and then they did silent run and he completely lost it, and we just had to keep starting again. But that actually eventually worked, where it was like we had it right for just enough to get a couple of torpedoes.
And that's the beautiful thing about this, because when you're playing it turn by turn, you can just kind of say, "What was that? What did you just say?"
Yeah.
Because if you're listening to this, you're not aware what Captain Sonar is. It's a submarine game where you're basically it's like advanced battleships almost. So you've got a grid and you're moving around on it, and like each team's in a submarine, and you've got to go north or south or east or west, and both teams have got the same map. So one person's a radio operator trying to track down the other ship, and basically they do that by listening to the commands that the opposing captain is given, but they don't know where the ship started on the map, so they have to try and figure it out themselves just by listening to the way that they're moving on the points on the map. And yeah, that's what's interesting about the real-time version of this, is the fact that the radio operator can just get so lost, and it's such an important role. Like it's the most important role in the game, is being the radio operator, basically, because you have to track down this ship and then fire on it. Everybody else has to make sure that they're ready to fire. The engineer, the first officer, they need to make sure the weapons are ready, that nothing's like going to explode.
As the radio operator, you always have the captain's ear.
You always do.
Always do.
He'll be the one
like, should we fire? I've got him, mate. I've got him.
But it was much more fun, I think, as a real time thing.
I mean, I would probably play the turn-based one because that is quite fun in its own way, and I think it's
much more relaxed.
It's got more chilled out, and it's a good one to be the radio operator in that as well, where you can kind of.
It's hard to get it wrong.
I suppose it makes for a slightly shorter game. I think we ended up playing the real time one for longer than we did the turn based one, because we kept going round in circles, missing each other.
Everybody kept losing each other and just like, well, we don't know what's going on here. But there was just like the prime example of it was the opposing team's captain. Totally froze up at one point and just couldn't figure out what to do next. He just couldn't figure out which direction he should go in. Like, they were trying to desperately pin us down because they thought that we knew where they were, and we kind of did. And it just like, and that's what's quite interesting with the real time thing, is that you don't have to wait for the other team to move. You can just keep moving while the other team sits there like a sitting duck, and you can just sneak up with them and batter them and blow them out of the water if you want to. And that was just a lot of fun. Like, again, definitely the way it should be played.
Is there any way to measure any sort of rounds, or can you just keep saying west,
There's
west,
no
north,
rounds.
north, west, west?
Yeah, you can, if you want, you can just batter as fast as you can across the sea. It's probably not going to do you much good. You're going to have to stop at some point and assess the situation, because the more you move, the more damaged your ship gets.
Oh, okay.
I mean, like, what it really comes down to is how well you can operate with the people, and it's so it works. It probably works best when you've got 4 people in your team, or probably on both teams, who have a good idea of what you can and can't do.
Yeah.
And they can sort of follow this, because essentially, the only thing that's really breaking it down in terms of time and when to do things is on your own team. Mm-hmm. So you want to do things in a certain order. So you want the captain to say right direction, and then each of the engineer and the weapons,
the first
officer, for them to complete their task and then let you know, so you can then move on. And if you do that like methodically, and you all get your parts right, then you're already going to be sorted.
Yeah.
Right.
But we had a lot of like kind of faffing about with that in the real time one. I think we did have to stop a couple of times and just go, wait, what's going on?
Oh yeah, actually, because I remember, you were the captain of your ship, and I remember there was a few times where you were saying, we're going to fire torpedoes, and I'm like, we can't fire the torpedoes, they're buggered. And there was just like, and that's what's interesting with the real time thing, is that you do something, you just have that breakdown of communication, because there's too much going on.
Yeah.
When you've got 2 teams of people shouting at each other, there's just a lot going on.
The way
that's hard to keep track
when
of.
everybody's sitting, you can't really. But you
can't see my board.
Keep track of the engineer at all.
Yeah, and it's the engineer that is trying to fix all the systems and deciding what breaks and all that sort of stuff. So
the different roles, lots of chaos, lots of shouting. This really does sound like just about any stag do.
Submarine.
Oh yeah.
In a submarine. If you had a stag do in a submarine, this is how it would go down. If you play Captain Sonar in a submarine.
Or during a stag do?
Yes.
Send us your pictures, please.
It's like these people that play Carcassonne in Carcassonne.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, there's lots of stuff like that goes on in Board Game Geek.
Did they have a wee picnic the other day as well?
Nerds.
I'd imagine.
Okay, right, we're going to have to wrap that up there. So this has been the missing episode 54. It has now been found. We will give out all our internet stuff, so if you want to email us, our email address is firstplayertoken@gmail.com. That's FIRST playertoken. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, SoundCloud, iTunes, and YouTube. Those are all the large and unnecessary First Player Token, or just First Player Token. Twitter is specifically @1ST Player Token.
Or Once Player Token.
Thank you, Euan.
Confuses you in any way.
We have a website, which is firstplayertoken.com, again FIRST. Now, I am planning on doing some work on that over the next 2 weeks, seeing as I've got 2 weeks off work and no plans at all. So I should probably put some work into that. We have a Discord. You can find us at discord.me/firstplayertoken, surprisingly enough. And we are part of the Podnose Network.
The UK's leading entertainment podcast network. I thought I'd be a bit less interested in that one then.
Any news, Euan? Still really. Chugging along?
Still getting along. Cheap Show really picking up the plaudits. They were bigging up their 5-star reviews earlier on today. I noticed.
We've got one 5-star review, right?
That'll do this. That's not. No, don't anybody else review us, please.
100% record.
5 stars out of 5 stars.
Okay, so like I said at the start of the show, we'll hopefully have our new next video games episode out later on this week, so look forward to that. And until then, thanks for listening.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.